Almighty God, who in thy infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of rulers and councils for the welfare of society and the just government of man, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servant, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of such important trusts in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in thy presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge, all which we ask in the name and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. House resumes and debate continues. Yes, Honorable Lockhart Hippolyte, you may proceed. You are recognized by the chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to bid a pleasant good morning to you, Mr. Speaker, my parliamentary colleagues, both on the government and the opposition side, the listening and viewing public, and to the great people of the Roseau South constituency. Mr. Speaker, before I continue, I'd like to ask you permission to go through my notes from time to time.
Permission is duly granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May God continue to richly bless you and your family. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give my full support to the 2024-2025 budget estimates as it was eloquently presented by our esteemed Minister of Finance, Dr. the Honorable Irving McIntyre. Mr. Speaker, this budget was set at a time, very critical time in our modern world history, and it was crafted to deal with the many challenges faced by the common man. Before I go further into my debate, Mr. Speaker, I want to publicly extend my heartfelt sympathy and condolences to key stalwarts of the Dominica Labour Party in the Newtown area. Ms. Marilyn Have, Albert Darambo, and a gentleman by the name of Emmett Peters, AKA, we call him Mr. Skerritt, and others who have been deceased. May their souls rest in peace. These were very strong pillars of the Dominica Labour Party, and I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, they will surely be missed. The leader of the opposition is not there, but I'm sure that he's probably listening and he will get the message. Or the leader in waiting, leader of opposition in waiting.
Okay, so we
the
don't
member
have a
for the
leader of
Marigot
opposition.
constituency.
Yeah. Okay, correct.
I want to extend my congratulations to him, Mr. Speaker, because he really exceeded our expectations. I got a WhatsApp message very early, 6 o'clock, after I prayed, Mr. Speaker, and I gave God thanks and praise for a new day. I got a WhatsApp message with someone saying to me, we're only giving him 20 minutes. But Mr. Speaker, he exceeded our expectations, and he did a wonderful job. But what I liked about his presentation, and I know the writer of his speech very well, that when he reached a point where he probably was not happy with what was written for him, he just cast it aside, Mr. Speaker. And he said, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to speak at this juncture in our debate because I have gotten the opportunity to listen to the members on the government side who did, Mr. Speaker, a marvelous job debating, educating, informing, and clarifying what was in the budget. I also listened to the opposition side. Mr. Speaker, I was disappointed, but not surprised, to say the least. Same old rhetoric, Mr. Speaker, as if probably all of them, I listened to each and every one of them, and they said the same things. It was like as if somebody had written a script for them. And I really thought that they would have learned from the mistakes from their predecessors, their counselors, their Prince of Peace, their motivators, Mr. Speaker. I thought they would have learned, but apparently, Mr. Speaker, they have not. They have not. And I really wanted the level of debate in this House to be of a higher standard, Mr. Speaker. But once again, the government side have showed them how it is done, Mr. Speaker. And let us give ourselves a round of applause. I heard talks like our healthcare system is in shambles, our education system is poor, nothing is being done for sports in this country, nothing is being done for youth, nothing is being done for agriculture. And Mr. Speaker, they have something saying, all you in power for 20 years, nothing has been done in 20 years. But Mr. Speaker, we have to go back because we have young people listening. And they do not know what happened 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Mr. Speaker, when this Dominican Labour Party took up the reins of power in this country, they met a bankrupt treasury, Mr. Speaker. A bankrupt treasury. Millions and millions of unpaid checks, Mr. Speaker. Here they want to talk about unpaid checks. We're not running a shop, you know, Mr. Speaker. We are running a government. We're dealing with international organizations. We must have debt. But the level of debt they left this country in, Mr. Speaker, what happened was that we had to face austerity measures. Mr. Speaker, I remember it so well. Because you know when you do something to a child, and at an early age, something bad and the child remembers. Well, Mr. Speaker, I just started working at the state college. And that traumatized me. I heard 5% after I have to pay Social Security. 5% stabilization levy had to come out from my salary, Mr. Speaker. And that was as a result of the UWP, Mr. Speaker. Hurricane, man-made, we're talking about climate change, but natural disasters. But there was man-made disaster in 2000. And Roosevelt Skerritt, our Prime Minister, visionary leader, Mr. Speaker, had to take this country from rock bottom and put it where it is today, Mr. Speaker. Public servants were not getting salaries on time. 45 days before they could have gotten paid. Monies were taken from poor people, Mr. Speaker, from Social Security to pay salaries, Mr. Speaker. That's how bad it was. One of my colleagues even told me, and he wouldn't mind I calling his name. Ambassador Ian Douglas said to me things were so bad that cabinet was even thinking of putting a bicycle tax, Mr. Speaker. That's how rough things was. It was announced, and you protested, Vince? Bicycle tax. It was rough. And from 2000, Mr. Speaker, this government has been faced with so many challenges. The trough system, Tropical Storm Erica, Hurricane Maria, COVID-19, Ukraine and Russia. Mr. Speaker, I mean, a government have to undergo that. A government have to undergo that type. And you know the beauty about it, Mr. Speaker? All government workers getting paid on time. We're not missing not one day. All NEP workers are being paid. Our debts are being paid. Yes, we might have some money for some people, but our debts are being paid. Our loans are being paid on time, Mr. Speaker. These are the things that we have done, Mr. Speaker. And the opposition is always being oblivious to the fact that there are challenges around the world and the region. Misleading, trying their best to mislead the people of this country. But, Mr. Speaker, I hear some people say they have eyes. Well, I have bulging eyes, and Mr. Speaker, I can see it. And it's there, I can see. And I can see Dominica on its way to being dynamic. Some don't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. But, and Mr. Speaker, they seen, but I suspect maybe, the cataract, glaucoma, sometimes there's, impair their vision. I'm not too sure it's any of them suffering from that. But it will happen, Mr. Speaker. Around the world, it's a debate. Don't take it personally. It's a debate, my friend. You said you're in Tropicini. I didn't see you at Tropic. You talking about things you don't even know about. You talking about Curl Festival. You have to practice what you preach. You say you support Tropicini, you are not there. I look all over the place. Or maybe she's too small, Mr. Speaker. I couldn't see her, Mr. Speaker. Please don't trouble me. Mr. Speaker, high levels of debt are faced all over the world. Vulnerability to natural disasters, high dependency on tourism, brain drain, high unemployment. Some places they have inadequate infrastructure, climate change, all of us facing it. Political instability, just to name a few. But this Dominica Labour Party just didn't sit down and do nothing about it. Because we are people who care about the most vulnerable among us. And Mr. Speaker, I do not know who the opposition is representing, because the only time I see them is within these four walls. Oh, Mr. Speaker, I saw them close by your place. Perky's, not Perky's, IROC, by the arch some time ago. So it's there I seen them. By the arch, Mr. Speaker, about electoral reform, time for change, and those things there, and within this, I've never seen them walk the streets of Salisbury or Marigot to go and see how people live in. All I'm hearing about is feeder road, maybe that lead into their farm, Mr. Speaker. They're thinking of. And Mr. Speaker, I'm not getting a parliamentarian salary. None of us here. They get in a parliamentarian salary and they have done nothing for the people whom they say they represent. Nothing. Just my Honorable Paul sit down in a nice fancy office with AC, but fan I using, Mr. Speaker, in Newton. Fan. What? 60 people I see now there and it's fan I using. Fan. I prefer take the money and buy groceries, buy Pampers, buy medication for the people that I serve. Mr. Speaker, what have we done in education? Free college tuition for students attending the Dominica State College. And I was the bursar at the Dominica State College. You remember me, Vince used to call me, not true, to give you a query. Several, Miriam, when she, Honorable Blanchard, called me several times to help out students in the Roseau North constituency. Mr. Speaker, there were students who could not afford to attend the state college, not because they didn't have the ability, but they just could not afford it. And I, as the bursar, had the opportunity to deal with them face to face, to interview them, find out the reason why they cannot attend the state college. And you know what I used to do, Mr. Speaker? The Ministry of Education used to pay for a few students. I'm the bursar, so when I send a bill, they have to pay it. So those who couldn't afford, I'll just put their names down, Mr. Speaker, and get the ministry to pay it. Then the Prime Minister, 2018, 2019, thereabout, made a pronouncement that he was waiving college fees for all college students, Mr. Speaker. That is the kind of leadership that we have in this country. Mr. Speaker, school transfer grants, free textbook scheme, and I myself in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, we forward fast. We working quick, like clockwork, Mr. Speaker. Even before government at Buffett State give out, we have given out about 80-something books, you know, to families, you know, Mr. Speaker, through our book scheme program. And thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister again, Mr. Speaker, for making the funds available so that we can run this program. Mr. Speaker, uniforms. Some children only had one skirt and one shirt. Now we're giving them free and for, Mr. Speaker, free of charge at no cost to the parents. And when they finish, they want to say, we're not doing anything for the youth of this country. Sad, very sad, Mr. Speaker. In infrastructure, roads building, bridges building, Mr. Speaker, it's not even taking me half an hour to reach from Roseau to Portsmouth. Half an hour I take in. Good the road, good so. One day you must come with me, Mr. Speaker. You'll frightened. You must come with me. Let's go. We'll go intercontinental and go by Roland. You must come with me. See how fast. Because men have a habit of saying women cannot drive. And ask my husband about it. And as I talk about bridges, Mr. Speaker, boy, I don't know. God is so good, eh? God is so good. But I will get to the Emsall Bridge a little later down in my presentation. Later down. Mr. Speaker, I don't know, I'm getting tired, really tired of coming to this honorable house, the highest court of this land, and hearing the opposition side degrade, denigrate our NEP. Honorable Charles watching me like what I thought. Mr. Speaker, you see the thing is that when we talk the facts and the truth, they're in another world. You see how we looking? Camera, GIS, make sure he days enough. You listening? Okay. Our NEP, Mr. Speaker. Brilliant program by the Honorable Prime Minister. 5+ million, Honorable Kozia, every month circulating in the Dominican economy. I can tell you about Roseau South. Sometimes we have 3 families, $3,000+ going to one household, Mr. Speaker. We have taken these people out of poverty. and restored some pride and dignity in our people by the creation of the National Employment Program. And we always say to our people, you don't have to stay under beautification. You have people working in the private sector, in the public sector, at the banks, Mr. Speaker. And as alluded earlier by my other man, we have examples right here in this house. And I have to repeat those things, Mr. Speaker, because one day it will sink in. One day the opposition will get it. They know, just trying their best to mislead people. We must never forget the prominence of the Yes We Care program. None of us are on this earth for too long, Mr. Speaker. All of us must die. Whether or not we want to hear it, we have to go one of those days. And when you die, Honorable Paul, Honorable Charles, and Honorable Victor, and Honorable Paris, how would you want to be remembered? Would you want to be remembered as those who were fighting down the poor and the vulnerable? That is how you want to be remembered? I don't think so, Mr. Speaker. I don't think so, especially my good friend, Honorable Charles, the MP for Margaret. He has a heart, Mr. Speaker. I come into him. I have to help him out there. Because he's still waiting, eh? I want him to get it, Mr. Speaker. Anyway. The Yes We Care. Mr. Speaker, when I visit the elderly in my constituency and other constituencies, and they tell you that Mary Jane, Suzanne, came to comb their hair and give them a bath, Mr. Speaker, you feel so good because the Bible says to us that we have to take care of our elderly. We have to take care of them. And to criticize the Yes We Care program, Mr. Speaker, because you never know, one day, it might not be me, it might be somebody else. You all on this side may need a caregiver. You never know. So please, I beg of you all, be remembered as those who cared for the most vulnerable amongst us. Be those that champion in the cause of this Dominican Labour Party to take out our people out of poverty and bring them up to glory, Mr. Speaker. That is how you should want to be remembered. Now, Mr. Speaker, I heard so much talk about health and the hospital and no supplies. Mr. Speaker, I visited the casualty department on several occasions. I have to thank God that I have been healthy so far, Mr. Speaker. Thank God for that. But there are those who are not so healthy. And I've had the occasion of going there with my husband, Mr. Speaker, a couple occasions. And I can tell you, the doctors and the nurses do an exceptional job. And Mr. Speaker, and to tell it, at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital. Thank God to our Chinese friends, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I go there, as I tell you, I go there. The last time I went there, they checked my husband's vitals. So the nurse told me to go this way. So I followed him, The doctor came and the doctor said, Madam, who tell you to go there? Mr. Speaker, I put my tail between my legs and I went back out. I don't know who told us, whatever they said to this doctor. She came back, apologized. I said, Doctor, people remember how you treat them. And when we come to this hospital and people are sick, remember, families are concerned. And so we expect that you treat us well. Change your attitude. Not because somebody said to you, I'm the PAL rep for Roseau South, you coming to me. No. While you're all doing a marvelous job, Mr. Speaker, at the hospital, I am begging the nurses and the doctors to have patience with people. Treat them well, have respect, Mr. Speaker. Change their attitudes towards our citizens. That is the biggest issue we have at the hospital. Not about paracetamol and pressure tablet. If your pressure high, go and drink coconut water and squeeze some lemon, Mr. Speaker. Go and exercise. That is what we have to do. Stop drinking sodas. That's what we have to do, Mr. Speaker. But I have a colleague that likes salt, Mr. Speaker. I have to talk to him. I have to caution him, Mr. Speaker, about that salt business. I have to talk to him. Honorable Williams said she's working on him. So he's up on the salt, my friend. Mr. Speaker, the 15 is 15 Honorable Kent health centers, 13 health and wellness centers around the island. Well equipped, Mr. Speaker, with doctors and nurses, and I can speak to the one at Newtown. Mr. Speaker, we're operating like a mini hospital up there. There's not one day you go to the Newtown Health Center and you meet them empty. All seats are filled. People waiting outside because they come from Roseau, even Goodwill, Honorable Blanchard. There are people coming by us for care. And I want to thank the nurses and the doctors at the Newtown Health Center for the wonderful job, Mr. Speaker, that they are doing. Mr. Speaker, I was driving home an afternoon and I met a dear friend of mine. Her name is Noreen. She's probably listening. And Noreen wasn't feeling well. I stopped Newtown. I saw her looking kind of dazed. I said, Noreen, what's wrong with you? Boy, I'm not feeling well now. I just come out in the health center and they put some things on my chest. Pap, 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 some silver things. She don't know what it is. I say, at ECG, Noreen? Yes. Imagine we have ECG machine at the health center. Primary health care, Mr. Speaker. We don't even need to go to Dominica, China, French. We have everything we need in Newtown, Mr. Speaker. Everything. I heard Honorable Paris, and he spoke about showing gratitude to the nurses, and I agree with it. I totally agree with him, Mr. Speaker, on showing gratitude. And Honorable Williams did it. Honorable Kasani, the Minister of Health, and also the PALSEC in the ministry. They all gave their congratulations and showed support to the nurses because they know that they're operating under very challenging times, Mr. Speaker. We know that. We know that. But people must practice what they preach, Mr. Speaker. I'm of the firm belief of that, showing gratitude. Senator Paris. Because the same person, Mr. Speaker, that signed for Senator Paris to be here today, he could not show him the same gratitude. He could not show him the same gratitude. It's sad because we speak about transparency and democracy, Mr. Speaker, all the time. Honorable Jesma Paul, the people of Marigot wants to know, why didn't you sign? Why didn't you sign to give your fellow colleague the opportunity to serve after he put you there? After he put you there, you did not give him the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to serve. You all had an agreement. You all had an agreement. And you did not live up to the agreement, Mr. Speaker. Answer the question, the people of Marigot, because, Mr. Speaker, he was elected, just like I. If it was Roseau South, you wouldn't be sitting down there now. Just honorable, sorry, the MP for Salisbury. That is a shame. That's a shame. It tells you about the people who are sitting on this side. And it had to take our leader, the visionary, the caring, and the loving Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit to give him the opportunity, the same time as the Minister of Finance presented, to fill that gap, Mr. Speaker. Why? Mr. Speaker, I suspect I can sit down, but I've talked about my constituents. I'm finished, Mr. Speaker. I also heard, and I hear them under their breath, Mr. Because the thing with them, they cannot test me, Mr. Speaker.
You have 30 something minutes, 33 minutes.
That's
so
okay.
so you have time. You have time.
And I'm sure you see these colleagues are not people like that, but I know they'll give me my time. And you see, he put up his hand because he's a sticker for time. Honorable, my constituent, Mr. Speaker. He lives up the hill and he sees the sea and the yachts, and when they come in at Newton. That's my boy, my boy. Nothing for the youth. Nothing for the youth. I come back on it, Mr. Speaker. Because lights and the lighting, 2x2, Mr. Speaker. Everywhere, Mr. Speaker. I had to ask Greta, Mr. Speaker, if that part 2 thing come in Parliament, I'm in trouble. If you see, I'm in trouble. All over the place. And Mr. Speaker, for years I advocated for the lighting at Newton. And some of my colleagues know I got it. I wouldn't go into it, Mr. Speaker, because it is not for the public. But when I want something, Mr. Speaker, I grab in it, I take in it. So when you pass through Newton, lights, Mr. Speaker, bright. Sometimes you cannot even shine in so brightly in the sky, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you that playing field is never empty. You have the Newtown Juvenile Football Academy, they are training, Mr. Speaker, the Harlem Sports Club training, the Harlem women, the veterans. Every night you pass it, the place full. Even the little children playing their little small go and tell me nothing for the youth. Lights in Soufriere, lights in Grand Bay, lights in Grand Fond, lights in Maho, Mr. Speaker, Vacas, everywhere around this country, lighting up the field so the young people can play at night. And we say nothing for the youth of this country. And Mr. Speaker, I warned them at the Minister of Sports. Look there, one on my right, on my left. If I don't get my lights for Bar Festive, whatever lights there, I'll take it. I will take it. They know me and how I operate, Mr. Speaker. Over $983,000 small business grants given to young people of this country, Mr. Speaker, most of them under 40. I was at the ceremony, I handed the checks. The check handler, Mr. Speaker, I handed that. Thanks to Honorable Grant and P.S. Emil and Dr. Japierre, we made it happen, Mr. Speaker. Monies these young people are going to use to develop their businesses and to hire more people. And Mr. Speaker, I asked the guy if I can call him. He told me, yes, I can. You can come in. You know a guy they call Rich? He has a nice fancy name, Coleridge. Bell, across the bridge. He sings, I will say, adult business, Mr. Speaker. He was a recipient. He was a recipient. And remember his famous tune with the Honorable Prime Minister. From AM to PM, we working. I was on the stage. Mr. Speaker, that was my best artist that year. Thanks to Coleridge. He got funding, Mr. Speaker, under that program. And I know he will use it wisely to make beats for the young people. The young people are interested in music. And we can see where it is taking them. They're traveling, Mr. Speaker. They're going to Martinique, they're going to Guadeloupe, they're going to France. Some of them never thought they would have gotten a visa, and they have a visa today going to New York City, Manhattan, Mr. Speaker. And so we recognize that, and so we have assisted Coleridge Bell to get the assistance to make more beats for the young people of this country, Mr. Speaker. Tourism. Mr. Speaker, I heard the other side, bash tourism. And you know when you bash tourism, you bash the Honorable Minister, who is my dear friend and colleague. We have developed so many sites, Mr. Speaker. Increasing cruise ship calls. In hotel development. We are getting ready for our international airport. For our cable car. Mr. Speaker, I saw the minister shared a video of the cable car. Now, some Dominicans, they are doubting Thomases, just like the other side there. They say, which cable car, nothing is going to happen. But, Mr. Speaker, when they saw the little cable car going, some message man tell me, boy, Parrot, very good initiative, but I won't be going on that, I'm afraid. And I know a particular colleague that will not go on it. He just come in the house, Mr. Speaker. I'm not calling name. I am not calling no name. He just come in the house. Mr. Speaker, we saw Disney cruise. Yes. We're not in the cruise season, but Disney Cruise Line was here this week. Off season, 3,000, and Honorable Minister say we can 3,000 on 600 passengers, and 98% of them disembark. Do you know what that meant for the vendors, the taxi drivers, the small businesses around Roseau, the tour guides, Mr. Speaker, the cassava man, Mr. Speaker, the amount of money that was circulating in the economy on that day, and you said we're not doing anything in tourism. I heard Honorable Victor speak about the World Crowd Music Festival. You know I like my action, Mr. I like my husband already warned me about that, but I just cannot contain myself when I hear about the World Crowd Music Festival. And I'll be going to breakfast, but you know, Mr. Speaker, I hear they want to arrest me when I reach Pishley. But nobody will trample on my fundamental right of movement. Nobody will trample. And Honorable our family there, you know, I campaigned for him hard, you know, Mr. Speaker, in Ireland and I campaigned for him hard, Mr. Montine and all those places. I make good friends, and so they send provision and stuff for me, Mr. Speaker, all the time. World Crown Music Festival. They say they can see, but I seen better. Coco. Yeah, that's it. I shall eyeball have eyeballs. That's right. World Crown Music Festival. I heard Honorable Victor say that's the worst they have seen 2 years. 2 years ago. You're not there for Burna Boy. Weren't you there for Burna Boy? You were not there. You have the opportunity to stand up to clarify, you know, according to the rules of the House. I said that you said the World Crowd Music Festival is the worst that you have seen for the past 2 years. Mr. Speaker, that's not true. That's not true. I remember when Burna Boy came. Friday night, I really threw up myself. I got up Saturday morning, drove down. Mr. Speaker, when I like to fly, because 30 minutes I reach in Portsmouth. Fly down there. When I reach a certain distance, Mr. Speaker, I see yachts. I say, but what is happening now? Yachts in Newtown. French people that came in for Burna Boy, Mr. Speaker. If he disappointed, it's not our fault. But the important thing is, people came. And we created that environment for visitors to come in our country. Exactly. Mr. Speaker, when I pass Newtown, all BB finish, you know. All BB and Pink Grapefruit is our national rum. All done. And I don't want to talk about a certain something, but I tell you, Mr. Speaker, it's sell. I don't talk about it. Sell. So I tell you, fellas in Newtown shops and so, make money, Mr. Speaker. Yachts. And the minister saw an increase in revenue that year. And this year, we have a very great lineup, Mr. And I feel that the Curl Festival has reached a stage, but I don't worry about lineup. Mr. Speaker, I go to the Curl Festival for the experience. It's a vibes. Why are we going on lunching for Minister? We have to talk about that. We don't have to spend plenty money lunching, nothing. We give them a little lineup when we decide to get and finish with that. People must come, Mr. Speaker, to our crowd. Because it has reached that level, Mr. Speaker. You hear about the helicopter, which is state where helicopter taking you from one point to the next way. VVIP Ultra Experience, Mr. Speaker. And you're telling me about worst Creole Music Festival. I heard somebody else attack the Minister of Tourism, saying that she wants to micromanage people. Mr. Speaker, the person not there on the opposition side. The seat is empty. And I find that is very disrespectful to the House, Mr. Speaker. Members have to come there on time and be present. But they're not representing anybody, so I guess they can do what they want. Attack the minister. Marva Williams, the new CEO of Discover Dominica, is my good friend. We speak. And I congratulate her, Mr. Speaker, on her new appointment, as the minister did in her presentation. And I believe that she will do a wonderful job and she'll add value to the Discover Dominica Authority. She has the ability, she has the capability, she has the experience, Mr. Speaker, to do so. But I don't want anybody to believe that the Minister of Tourism is micromanaging anybody. I have had the opportunity to work with her as the PALSEC in the Ministry of Tourism. And I was responsible for ports and maritime, and she allowed me, Mr. Speaker, to do my work. But with any good manager, any good leader, we meet to discuss. And she has to give a note of approval. And the last time I checked, the minister is responsible for Discover Dominica Authority. Anything happens to that organization, they're going to blame the minister. I want to congratulate my friend and colleague, Honorable Dennis Charles, the MP for the Soufrière constituency, for doing a wonderful job, Mr. Speaker, in this Ministry of Tourism.
Yes, you must remember she's a Pemberton now.
I just forget that. We're so close there, Mr. Speaker, I even had a little go, but anyway, we'll talk about that another time. Come and show me the ring, and you know, Mr. Speaker, that day. But I was overjoyed for my friend, eh? Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, despite all these challenges that we have faced as a government, we remain steadfast. We remain committed to the cause, Mr. Speaker, and we will do what it takes. We will do what it takes to ensure that this Dominica that we live in, that some of us, or if not all of us, call our home, that it will be the envy of the entire Caribbean country, Mr. Speaker. Now I want to turn my attention.
20 more minutes.
I want to turn my attention to the telecommunications and digital economy sector, Mr. Speaker. Now, we as a government, we try our best to bridge the digital divide. And how we have done that is to provide the infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, the services to the public. And one of the ways which we have done so, by creating access, and my colleague minister spoke about it, is Net4. And our people are funny, you know, at times they say, well, they are $10 a month. They say that cheap is not good. But I can assure them the Net4All $10, Mr. Speaker, is a good service and it works, Mr. Speaker. It works. The NTRC during this year, Mr. Speaker, will spend $100,000 on a resource center equipped with PCs, printers, scanners, and high-speed internet for the Roseau North constituency. Also, we spent $300,000 at the State College renovating an innovation hub for the youth again, Mr. Speaker. $300,000. Under that project, the college will get new computers, state-of-the-art PCs. At the community level, Mr. Speaker, we're not stopping there. At the community level, Wi-Fi, and you know, dumb people nowadays is a life or death situation if they haven't got internet on their phone. So we're going to put community Wi-Fis for Lapland, Botanical Gardens, and I remember for Roseau Central, Cassie Bruce, Wesley, Maho, for Tukari, Point Michel, and Silver Lake, Mr. Community Wi-Fi access. Because we want people to move away from trying to go on dates online. We want people to move away from finding boyfriend and girlfriend online, mister. You know, we have the traditional way which we do. Let us stick to the tradition. Go out, take a little drive, go up to Monbus on the morn, you know, overlook the city. You know, we want to stop that. We want to stop people from stealing Wi-Fi from others, so we are creating the access. We're creating the access, Mr. Speaker. Now, as we speak about internet and creating the access, we have the Telecommunications Act, which we are going to we have the current Telecommunications Act, and we want to move into the EC bill, the Electronic Telecommunications Bill, Mr. Speaker. And what that means for us is that we will create some higher level of investment in the industry, cater for other telcos who want to be part of the industry. So we will increase the level of competition, Mr. Speaker, and also to protect the government and consumers. The Telecommunication Act does not do that. So we have to move to the EC bill, and I can report to this House that the legal committee, they have met. They have met, they have gone for it, and it's just a matter for us to prepare the cabinet paper and to come to this honorable House to approve the EC bill. Now I move to DOWASCO, Mr. Speaker. Move to DOWASCO. And there's a lot of talk in the public about the increased rates. Now, while water is free, and we say we have 365 rivers, Mr. Speaker, it's free. But the issue is, and I've already spoken to DOWASCO, you know, Mr. Speaker, because that paper came to cabinet about 12 times. None of the colleagues there wanted to approve increasing water rates. I can tell you it was hard for me, Mr. Speaker. Very hard. Honorable Vince had to join me at meetings with the DOWASCO officials. It was rough. And I said to the DOWASCO board and management of DOWASCO with non-certainty that they have to improve on the efficiency of their service. And they have to limit discretionary spending. And we'll be monitoring and evaluating DOWASCO every quarter, Mr. Speaker. They have to report to the cabinet as to how things are going. Because I woke up this morning, I turned on my tap and no water here, Mr. Speaker. None. So I understand what the common man sometimes is going through. But nonetheless, I have to put my ministerial hat on, my management hat on, and understand what DOWASCO as well is going through. So while water is free, the access to water is very costly, Mr. Speaker. Very costly. And DOWASCO has been challenged as well by climate, natural disasters, Tropical Storm Erica, Hurricane Maria. Mr. Speaker, Dowasco spent over $3 million. $3 million after Tropical Storm Erica to improve on tanks and restoring water to many of our households across this country. After Erica, Dowasco picked up again, and bam, Hurricane Maria came, Mr. Speaker. Hurricane Maria came. 90% of our water systems were down to a tune of $13.9 million in damages. $13.9 million. Dowasco had to complete phase 1 of the Mount Prosper water system at a cost of $3.2 million, Mr. Speaker. 1.8 came from the Basic Needs Trust Fund and CDB, and 1.5 from the government of Dominica. A new water system, Mr. Speaker, to serve the Joe Burton housing area of Wesley was necessary, Mr. Speaker, at a tune of $4.8 million. Completion of the Bellevue Chopin water system, $2.4 million. A new system in water to Soufriere from Pichelay, $6.5 million, Mr. Speaker. Pipeline works to facilitate the East Coast project, $6 million, Mr. Speaker. But we cannot tell people to go and take water in the Sus, Mr. Speaker, underwater. We can't do that. There are certain things that the government must do, regardless of the cost. And so, not despite the challenges that Dowasco faces, we still have to forge ahead and improve the water supply and systems in various communities.
10 more minutes. 10 more minutes.
Ask for some 20 minutes. 20.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the honorable member be given an additional 20 minutes.
It has been moved and seconded that the Honorable Lockhart be given an additional 20 minutes. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Honorable Minister, you are given an additional 20 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, and may God continue to bless you again. You get blessings and your family, your dear wife, my Jenny, my good friend. And Mr. Speaker, may God bless you all and your union, Mr. Speaker. Now, you saw the amount, all my colleagues wanted to stand up and give more. You know I'm love, Mr. Speaker? Everybody want to give me more time. But these are the things that Dowasco will undertake this coming year. $9 million in Cassie Bruce, Mr. Speaker, to improve the water system in Cassie. The parrot always calling, Shaki, I haven't got water today. Shaki, no water. Shaki, honorable member for Cassie Bruce, that will be fixed in this coming year. Right. You will have so much water that you may even provide to Kalinago territory. Don't you? You will have plenty water. Right. $10 million for Grand Fort Monjon Rivière Syric water systems, Mr. Speaker. $8 million will be spent in this financial year. And she sit down next to me. Kalibishi, Honorable Lakia Joseph, $6 million. Kulibishri, Grand Savan. I shouldn't be watching this side to watch this side. My friend. Let me say it again. Kulibishri, Grand Savan, Salisbury, $10 million. $10 million, Mr. Speaker. Bush water system, 1.8, Mr. Speaker. And my dear Prime Minister, nobody can touch him, or you can say, do whatever you want. He's my Prime Minister. And we are taking care of him in the Penville area to a tune of $1 million to fix the Penville water supply. $1 million. Now, Mr. Speaker, I turn my attention to the largest, most diverse, most dynamic, most loving, most skilled people of the Roseau South constituency. Mr. Speaker, they have been asking me, what's in the budget? What's in the budget? Parliament, what's in the budget for us? Well, I said to my people, there's a lot in this budget for you. The Emsall Bridge, Mr. Speaker. And I tell you all in this house, when I don't get something, I'll take it, and I will do what it has to take to get it. I've been very patient, Mr. Speaker, and I have the plans. Don't test me, Mr. I have it. Or you think I'm joking? This morning, the Honorable Prime Minister asked me to get the estimates and the drawings and the plans and the designs for the Emsall. And Mr. Speaker, you know that is a leader in me, because from time he asked me, I said, Honorable Prime Minister, I have it under my pillow. I had it this morning. I had it. Mr. Speaker, look at you, we have plenty of work to do there. We have bridge, walls, land to acquire, plenty things to do. But I want to tell the people of Emsall that in the first quarter, I'll be meeting with them, along with the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Public Works, my colleague, my minister, Honorable Grant, the CTO, for us to sit and have a consultation and discuss the Emsall Bridge, Mr. Speaker. And to tell them that I've not forgotten them. Every time we're in the hurricane season, my heart is heavy. I don't sleep properly at night when there's bad weather. I have to call on the PS to get the CTO to preposition, Mr. Speaker, heavy equipment in the event that there's rockfall from the cliff. But we are committed. I am committed as your power to do the Emsall Bridge, Mr. Speaker. The Lubia to Baga to Grand Bay Road, Mr. Speaker, it's in the budget. Some people say they don't see things, and Honorable Grant had to correct them. It wasn't under that head. I mean, sometimes if you don't know, so ask a question. Seek clarification. It's there. Lubia to Grand Bay Road, it is dear, Mr. Speaker, for my constituents. And many of the young men, but if you pass through Lubia now, you hardly see people on the roadside, you know, Mr. Speaker. But there will be jobs. And I see memes and all kinds of things. Yes, jobs, and to be part of the meme. Put me on the memes. There will be jobs, and more jobs for the people of Lubia and Newton and Wallows who want to work on the Lubia to Grand Bay Road, Mr. Speaker. People just forget very quickly, Mr. Speaker, when you pass through Newton some years ago, there was a very dilapidated building, stench, old laundry, washroom facility there. And when I came in as a parent, and that thing so close to my office, I had to get money from somewhere. And one thing I can say, the Prime Minister is always very supportive, Mr. Speaker. Always very supportive. Trying times, things I had so many people calling him, but once, and I like to message him early, don't take my, let me not say what I just do, because I'm not saying what I do. I'm not telling them. I'm not selfish in my I'll share it with Honorable Skerrit and Honorable Dennis. So, the fish vending stall at Newton, we created that. But Mr. Speaker, we did it. The fishermen are now vending in a much cleaner environment. A lot of people stop there to buy fish. I can tell you. He left. There's somebody that like to boast about most fish. But anyway, we do catch a great good amount of fish. And my eyes are bulging, Mr. Speaker, so I get tired sometimes. Tired. And so when I pass and I see the tents, I'm ready to take it out. I'm ready to remove those tents and to give the fishermen of Newton a nice covering to improve the aesthetics of the place, to fix up the washing area, Mr. Speaker. And we met with the PIU, thanks to the two ministers, Honorable Defoe and Honorable Roye. We met with his unit last week, Friday, and we'll be doing a design and build. You know, I started to talk like a technical person now. Design and build, Mr. Speaker. So it can move fast. Anything, I like to go fast. So anything that can move fast, Mr. Speaker, I need. Design and build. And so we're hoping that we can realize this project very, very, very soon, Mr. Speaker. Because we must end, Mr. Speaker, by April. So we will do that. Housing, also a very critical area for us in Roseau South. We're challenged, Mr. Speaker, with land issues, but we were fortunate, thanks to the Ministry of Housing, that we were able to purchase a lot at Eggleston. That too had all these challenges, and all these challenges, contractor passed away. And Mr. Speaker, one of my colleagues spoke about praying over projects, and I think that is one of the projects that I had to pray very hard over, was the housing for our people of Roseau South. To date, Mr. Speaker, I can report to my constituents that within 4 months, 3 buildings have gone up already, Mr. We're at unfinishing touches. And 16 families in the first phase will realize the dream of a new home, Mr. Speaker. We're not daunted because the people of Newtown have been promised their housing, and I will be speaking to the Minister of Housing, and we have spoken already, and the Honorable Prime Minister, about housing for the people of Newtown and the other areas in the Roseau South constituency. So, tourism and yachting sector. Now, my colleagues believe, they're my friends, so I can say anything I want about them. They're not thin-skinned like those on the other side. Yeah? Though the marina is going to be built in the north, but the real vibes, Mr. Speaker, is in the south, I can tell that. The real vibes, they will not stay in the north, I can assure you of that. Look, my dear friend Defoe tell me working on some, and the Prime Minister said it, last Parliament, that he's coming to me. Mr. Speaker, I don't forget things, and when when you see me make a promise, I at him every day. PM, don't forget me. PM, not to forget me. PM, not to forget me. But the vibes really is in, so they'll anchor there, yes, and so, but we're ready for them, Mr. Speaker. We're ready to provide laundry services. We're ready to provide security services. We have NAS, Newtown Association of Yachting Services and Security. And I was blessed with a boat from the Ministry of Tourism. So we have a boat already, Mr. and an engine. Because you can have a boat, you can't go nowhere with it. You must have an engine to go on the water. So we already have a boat, and I will hand over the boat to the Newtown Fisheries Cooperative very soon, and so that we can get ready for the next yachting season to provide the security for our yachties. Mr. Speaker, we have the best whale watching operators in the south. So that's why I tell you, even if they're in the north, we'll benefit. We will benefit. Because we have the services already. We have whale watching, swimming with the whales, all that in Newtown. We have Kurtz, we have Joanne Gage, all of them. Dive Dominica. So I'm urging the young people, the people of Newtown, those who are interested, to get yourselves ready. And I will do what I can as the parent to provide the necessary resources and training to some of those who need training. But we have those services. And there's a guy in Newtown, his name is Jerry. Doesn't like, he don't mind, he's my friend, I can call his name. He does whale watching and so on. When I came to Portsmouth for the opening, the groundbreaking of the marina, who I see there with a shovel, Mr. Speaker, Jerry. Jerry was so excited. Very excited, Mr. Speaker, for this marina. And my guys got their concessions under the new policy to bring down new boats improve boats. Improve boats, Mr. Speaker, for people who want to do whale watching and swimming with the whales. So, my constituents, let not your heart be troubled. The opportunities are there. You need to grab it. You need to take advantage of it, Mr. Speaker. We heard the Minister of Tourism speak about the zip line in Mongoose. Mr. Speaker, I don't know how excited I am because I want to go on a zip line. I'm heavy, but by the time the zip line reach, I'm going to lose plenty weight. Plenty weight so I can be light when I sit down on the zip line, Mr. Speaker, from Mongoose to the gardens. Whoop! You know I like to move fast. Whoop! Whoop, Mr. Speaker. Zip line for Mongoose. And we already have vendors there, and if anybody wants to provide any services to the people who come up there, I can give them some ideas. Maybe we have some ice cream, popcorn, chain like cotton. Oh, what is it? Creamy what? Bright and creamy ice cream, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if you hear about it, bright and creamy, but bright and creamy ice cream will be on sale at Monbruce on the Mon, Mr. Speaker, when that zip line is done, Mr. Speaker. I finish it. Who's sleeping? I know hearing them. I just miss into your snore. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, moving on to roads also. Mr. Speaker, we have one of our biggest capital projects. It's on its finishing stage. Every time I pass, I watch it. I saw some paints there and AC units going up. The Ocean Edge Hotel. Ocean Edge Hotel. Being built right in the Roseau South constituency. In Lale Coco, Mr. Speaker, to be exact. That's the name I cannot, that's the name, Mr. Speaker, Lale Coco. Can't change it, can't translate. Mr. Speaker, when I pass and I see some of my young men and so from Newtown and Kingston area working at Ocean Edge, I feel so proud, Mr. Speaker, because jobs during construction, and there will be jobs after construction, Mr. Speaker. And I intend to provide some hospitality training for the people in the Roseau South area. My people in Girondin and Eggleston can benefit because the hotel will need freshly cut flowers, Mr. Speaker. The fishermen will benefit from this development. So we are creating the opportunities. Once again, I'm urging my constituents to take the opportunity provided to them, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, in agriculture, we'll continue to issue, to give out fertilizers and inputs to our farmers where they need duty-free concessions on certain goods. We will do so. I can say one thing that the Minister of Agriculture, even before he was minister, he was PS in public works, and let me tell you, anytime I call on him, we do plenty things undercover already, Mr. Don't misunderstand me, We do plenty things, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I would say you need to clarify.
Yes,
be careful.
Yes, let me clarify, Mr. Speaker, that the Honorable Roland Royer has been very helpful to me when he was the PS in Public Works, and he assisted me with a number of projects, Mr. Speaker. Some probably not budgeted, but we could squeeze it on the head, Mr. Speaker, but we did it anyway, and he assisted a lot. So that is enough clarification for you, sir. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Small business training, Mr. Speaker. The small business unit continues to assist the people in the Roseau South constituency with their businesses. The businesses are very diverse. And recently a training was held at the Newtown Primary School in the areas of finance and marketing and pricing, Mr. Speaker, to help these people improve on their businesses. Because we heard some people in this house talking about businesses closed down, businesses closed down. But they will not tell you about the number of businesses that are open and the number of businesses that are thriving. And if you realize that a business is not doing well with their background, because they're supposed to be their bright, right? They're well qualified. You have to help people to manage their monies wisely. And businesses closing everywhere in the world. I went to Miami. There was a business I don't buy my suits, Mr. Speaker, to come to Paris so I can use. I couldn't get them when I asked the business closed down. Business is closing down everywhere, so it's Dominica London. Look, Dr. Williams said the same girl, we like to look good, Mr. As women. That is why I didn't want to speak last night, Mr. I had to go and do my makeup so I can look sharp, wear my nice suit, bright color, little, right? So, business is closing down everywhere. Everywhere, Mr. Speaker. So it's not Dominica alone. Mr. Speaker, some people like to football capital. We're the football capital of Dominica. And that is what it is. Nobody else can take those accolades. When you hear about football in Roseau, you hear Harlem. You hear Buffet State. So, Mr. Speaker, we're the football capital of Dominica, and I will continue to work with my constituents to rehabilitate the various playing fields in the constituency. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, there's heavy equipment at Silver Lake, rehabilitating the Silver Lake playing field for the children of Silver Lake so that they could have a place to play and to exercise their energies, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank Ada Trucking for assisting me, Mr. Speaker, with this venture. I'm a blessed child, because I just got a WhatsApp message while I'm in Parliament. And he reached out to me and he said, Pal Rep, I see they have so much bush, and so I came to help out a friend of mine. We will do the playing field for you for free. Just give me the fuel. Just, Mr. Speaker, there are good people around. They are good people, and he will get his blessings twofold, Mr. Speaker. 100-fold, sorry. Not. Mr. Speaker, in Kingsville, I know everybody looking back to hear about their own area, but we have work to do. Currently, I have young people from the NEP, because there are times we have to redirect our NEPs. And so my NEPs just completed a road in Kingsville, PS, Mr. Speaker. Very good job, and I want to thank Al Thomas and Kimon Joseph for leading that, Mr. Speaker. All I needed was tarish and some cement. I got it, and the guys just run that project. Currently, they're in Kingsville again, Mr. Speaker. In Kingsville, by the Kingsville Baptist Church, there's a shortcut to go down to Cornwall Street. And a lot of little children use that shortcut to go to the Newtown Primary School and to do all the little business for their parents, and adults too. And the place is very dangerous, very slippery. So they are there working on a new pathway for the people of that area, Mr. Speaker. I'm still committed to doing the Kingsville Community Center because we have no place to have meetings. As I said some parliaments ago, that Burgess Stout did the designs and estimates for me free of charge. I don't know what about me, but people doing things for me, free of charge. And I take in it because I figure I bless in others, so I get in my blessings. Free of charge. We are committed to doing it for them. The road works, maintenance works, Mr. Speaker, in the constituency. We know that there are challenges in the areas of Wallace and Castle Comfort. I have devised a strategy, but Mr. Speaker, I can't do it alone. You see, I get him breathless talking about Roseau because it's a large constituency with a lot of needs, Mr. Speaker. Nobody cannot tell me what Roseau needs more than me. I'm on the ground. That's why I'm called the ground pal rep. So I know what we need to do, but development is a process, and things take time, Mr. Speaker. Things take time. And so I want the community to join me. Those who have bad roads, let us see how between us, the PAL rep, the Ministry of Public Works themselves can come together, Mr. Speaker, for us to deal with some of the bad roads that we have. And when we have things nice, we will just do it. We'll come to them, I'll give them a letter letting them know that we're going to do their road. and there may be some inconvenience caused to them, and we will just do it, Mr. Speaker. But for now, they have to work with me, and they have to have some patience and understanding, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, as I wrap up, as the ground power rep for Roseau South, Mr. Speaker, I'm duty bound to represent, defend, and protect the vested interests of the people. I am a fair fighter who seeks equity and justice and progress for not only the people of Roseau South, but all Dominicans, Mr. Speaker. We have a democracy to protect, and that is why I stand firm with the MP for the Marigot constituency. And we have development plans to pursue. We ain't stopping, Mr. Speaker. We shall not be distracted. Our focus is sustained through our belief and faith in Jehovah God. For God, Mr. Speaker, is for us. Nothing or no one can defeat this great Dominican Labour Party, Mr. Speaker. God bless, Mr. Speaker. God bless. God will guide us, Mr. Speaker, through these trying times. We know times are trying. We know times are hard. We know times are challenging. But we are here as leaders. We do not complain, Mr. Speaker. We don't complain. We lead, Mr. Speaker. And with these few words, I support this budget, which was crafted for the common man of this country to get an ease, Mr. Speaker, from what they are facing. Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Blackmore, you are recognized. You have the floor.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I rise to firstly commend the Minister for Finance. I must confess, when he started, I was a little nervous because he started slowly. But he quickly went into overdrive and delivered a splendid speech, Mr. Speaker. I want to congratulate your members of staff, the Financial Secretary, and this Labour Party administration for presenting yet again another very impactful budget. But Mr. Speaker, I'm going to make some general comments relative to the budget and relative to some of the complaints, statements, and intervention made by members of the other side of the House. And then I'll give a brief overview of the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. But Mr. Speaker, permit me, before I proceed into the fundamentals of what I want to say this morning, to ask of you a simple question. And how many podia you have in this parliament? You have only one podium? All right, only one. The reason why I'm asking that question, Mr. Speaker, the national budget and the response that comes thereafter represent, in our political history and civilization, the two most important, among the two most important addresses, Mr. Speaker, to come from this chamber. And therefore, that is why a podium is provided, to provide the Minister for Finance the opportunity to present the budget to the public with utmost precision and deliberation. The same can be said for the leader of the opposition. Historically, I've been in the House for a very long time. We have always had a response from the other side. But you know the situation confronting the other side right now, Mr. Speaker. So the Prime Minister invoked the rules of the House and allowed the member for Marigot, who, based on some arrangement, should have been the leader of the opposition. That's the business, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I was speaking on his behalf with the member of Parliament for the Salisbury constituency to render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. But, Mr. Speaker, after all I was not in the island. But after I witnessed and listened to this public fiasco, Mr. Speaker, coming from a member from Marigot, Mr. Speaker, honorable member for Salisbury, hold your thing. Because Tiwe Boyo, Mete Pai, Mr. Speaker. Membet, Mempon, Mr. Speaker. So I'm saying,
Interpret, that's a lot.
well, the same animal, same hair, same first. Understand? Tiwe Boyo, Mete Pai, the same thing. The same thing. The same thing. That's it. We've always in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, I mean, there was an opportunity for the guy to have used prime time and sell himself and to provide an alternate to what was presented by the government of Dominica, which of course is in keeping with our fundamental democracy. And bearing in mind, Mr. Speaker, the national budget provides the roadmap that speaks to the programs for the economic and social development of the country and the public administration of the country, Mr. Speaker. A very serious matter. Now, Mr. Speaker, then what I took from his contribution is that he wants to kill the young men of Dominica. Figuratively, because he wants to make Dominica a hub for smoking tobacco. Maybe he's planting high leaf in the hills of it. I don't know. But, Mr. Speaker, it is very frightening. But, Mr. Speaker, going back to the budget presented by the Minister for Finance, again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. And the theme, Mr. Speaker, of this budget is very instructive. And it calls for the application of good judgment in the usage of the limited resources at the disposal of this government. He went on to say further, Mr. Speaker, that we must be mindful of the global circumstances impacting our front, impacting the world, small island states like Dominica. And as a consequence, Mr. Speaker, it is difficult for us to live in this current climate because of the realities of global change, of climate change, Mr. Speaker, and the global wars. This is a serious budget. It's within that context, therefore, we're hoping to have a discussion and to have a response from the other side, Mr. Speaker. Now, what situation we have found ourselves in, Mr. Speaker, in 2024, that makes it so difficult for us to inflation, price inflation, Mr. Speaker, etc., etc. But, Mr. Speaker, what is more fascinating and refreshing about this budget, Mr. Speaker? Manifested in it is a human heart, Mr. Speaker. Notwithstanding our limited resources, this government, this Labour Party administration, does not want to hurt the people of Dominica, does not want to make it more difficult for the people of Dominica. And as a consequence, Mr. Speaker, feels and cares for the people of Dominica. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we have no taxes on the backs of the people of this country, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding what we are going through, Mr. Speaker, despite of that, Mr. Speaker, despite of that, we are building a dynamic Dominica for the children, Mr. Speaker, in kindergarten school, Mr. Speaker, in the kindergarten school. And I can stay in his house, Mr. Speaker, because yesterday when I was coming in, we actually came in, there was a tropical wave. You know what I'm saying? And you know, when you bring shift to land, I say, one day, I pray. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that within the context, Mr. Speaker, to say to this honorable house, Mr. Speaker, but by the end of 2026, Mr. Speaker, direct flights will be coming from the major centers in the world, Mr. Speaker, straight to Dominica, from London, from Hong Kong, Mr. Speaker, from China, from New York, from Canada, from Tokyo, Mr. Speaker. That is what this budget is all about, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, we are saying further, by 2025, the end of 2025, people like Mami and Vado and thousands of tourists coming into this country will be able to hop a cable car and go and witness, Mr. Speaker, for the first time of their lives, Mr. Speaker, the boiling lake, the cable car, Mr. Speaker. That is what this budget ought to be about, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're talking about. Despite the hard times, that's what we're doing. Building a dynamic Dominica for all to enjoy and thrive. That is what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, We have been talking a lot about our heavy reliance on generators. But I can say to this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, by December of 2026, Mr. Speaker, our heavy reliance on generators as a major source of our energy, 25, sorry, will be a part of our past history, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're all about, Mr. Speaker. Cheaper energy, giving us a competitive edge, Mr. Speaker, and to create an environment, Mr. Speaker, for energy-intensive companies to thrive, Mr. Speaker. That is what this budget ought to be about. Despite trying times, Mr. Speaker, we are building a dynamic Dominica for kindergarten children and all, Mr. Speaker. That is what it's all about. And Mr. Speaker, we are not stopping here. We're not stopping here. By 2026, Mr. Speaker, the people in the North, more specifically the people of Portsmouth, have been yearning for a marina, Mr. Speaker. And it is coming, Mr. Speaker, in the North. That is what this body is all about, Mr. Speaker. Creating, igniting the North, igniting Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker, to create jobs and a buzz for the entire North, Mr. Speaker. That is what this body is all about, in spite of the difficulties confronting this world, Mr. Speaker. Despite of that. That's what we're talking about. And all of the difficulties that we have, and as we actually apply our good judgment in using, Mr. Speaker, our limited resources, there are certain things because of the mantra of the Labour Party that we have to preserve. The elderly, the children, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we are preserving our social services, Mr. Speaker, and our people development, Mr. Speaker, in this budget, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are all about in the Labour Party, Mr. Speaker. And then they speak, as we say, the country breaks. Nothing happened in this country, Mr. Speaker. But let me say something, Mr. Speaker. Despite of the circumstances confronting this world, this Labour Party administration will again raise the minimum wage for the ordinary folks of this country, Mr. Speaker, so that they can cope with the issue of price inflation. We realize and we appreciate as the Dominican Labour Party that the ordinary worker, the common man, the only commodity he can sell is his labor power. And in exchange for his labor power, Mr. Speaker, he has to be paid a wage. We are saying in the Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, that wage that is being paid to this ordinary man has to be able to enable him to survive and to feed his family, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're all about. And let us talk about the Labour Party having a good heart, Mr. Speaker. The Dominican Freedom Party spent 15 years in power. They adjusted the minimum wage in 1988-99, once in 15 years. When the Workers' Party came into office, we have a minimum wage by categories, not a flat across the line. The minimum wage a couple dollars, $2, $3, the highest, $2. They never touched it. They never adjusted the minimum wage. It was under Roosevelt Scout and his Labour Party administration in 2007, 2008 that we adjusted again the minimum wage. We just recently, again, I was the minister then, we just recently adjusted it, Mr. Speaker, and have categories on the minimum wage. Let us just speak about the minimum wage. It doesn't say that is what you have to pay the employee. It says that you cannot pay, it's a ceiling in which you cannot pay the employees below. You must pay. But any smart worker is not going to pay the exact minimum wage. But there are some people who will do it. That is why it's important to protect the workers. So we'll raise the thing, the various category, $7.25, $7.24 for security guards, $8 per an hour. We actually further defined the categories include bartenders, Mr. Speaker, and waiters, etc. And all those different categories and shop assistants. And we are saying in the Labour Party, we stand for the ordinary people. So we did that, and we shall be doing it again. You heard the Minister for Finance, Mr. Speaker, made a reference to the establishment of a board working in the private sector to look at all the variables and to come back with a recommendation. But we in the Labour Party, on behalf of the people of this country, the ordinary man who have made this country what it is today, we will raise the minimum wage for the people of this country again, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're saying. And that is what this body ought to be about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Senator Delbert Paris. Mr. Speaker. Smooth operator. Smooth smooth operator. Mr. Speaker, don't laugh. I'm from Mao. Mao, Newton, so it's trouble. You see, there's, Teddy Prendergrass, son. There's something about smooth operators. They come, they appear to be bright, speak, roll their eyes, smile, forehead shining, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, these are the folks you have to be very careful with. People who speak slow and smile. There's something, you know what I'm saying? So, Mr. says something. Something weird. Something weird. So, Mr. Speaker, he created a bright guy, yeah, but he must stick to his lane. Understand? And he must not mistake drafting for drafting of letters, Mr. Speaker. Because he was the major drafter for the letter that went to the president that was told. Mr. Speaker, he painted a very gloomy picture about the finances of the state. And he said things are bad. The government can't pay debts. So many unpaid checks. But paradoxically, he's calling the same Brooks government, Mr. Speaker, to establish or to create a special fund in the commercial banks so that truckers, private truckers, can get financing and buy new trucks. He's not aware of the debt portfolio of the private sector, of private truckers, whether they own the banks, etc. But a Brooks government, Mr. Speaker, should come and put money in the bank and to allow all and sundry to say, I want a loan, I want money to buy a truck. How is that making sense, Mr. Speaker? How is that making sense? It makes no sense, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, what I would expect him to make reference to are the real indicators. To give us an appreciation as to what transpired then and what is happening now in terms of the size of the economy. Okay, and Mr. Speaker, the proxies that we use to measure, say, Mr. Speaker. Now, let us go back to 1999 when this party was in office. Like we talk about there were more jobs before, more people were in Dominica before, etc. But what in this budget this year we're presenting, what is the recurrent expenditure that you're presenting? As opposed to 1999. In 1999, the recurrent expenditure was how much? $211 million. That is, now our recurrent expenditure is almost 4 times that then in 1999. What was the estimate for capital projects in 1999, Mr. Honorable Paris, smooth operator? What? $181 million, including the fake international airport. All right? Now, it's almost $1 billion, Mr. Speaker. Almost 8 times more significant than that one transpired then, Mr. Speaker. But they're not talking about that. Smooth operators. You understand? Smooth operators. We have to listen to this, we have to listen to them. And have to jam them back, Mr. Speaker. They're too smooth. They're too smooth. Then, Mr. Speaker, you said, Mr. Speaker, that people live in the country in growth. Mr. Speaker, when you're looking at statistics, are you a social scientist? Yeah, a pure science man, right? Natural science guy, sorry about that. But of course, you have some social science background. We look at trends. We look at trends over a period of time, isn't that so? Mr. Speaker, from 1995, the population rate, the birth rate has been going down from 1995. Because why, Mr. Speaker? Look at this honorable house, the number of women sitting in government and in opposition, permanent secretaries, Mr. Speaker. Women are more independent. No longer this traditional view and precept of a woman belonging to the home as housemakers. This thing, we are departed from that. Women are equally competent as men to be managers and politicians, Mr. Speaker. So they make less babies. It's not big science to understand that. But what was the population, Mr. Speaker, in 1999? In 1999, the population of Dominica, the average population, or the end of the year population in 1999, was 71,143. 71,143. What it is now? The last estimate we did, using a particular methodology, Mr. Speaker, was in 2022, sorry. What was it? 71,845. So I don't understand, you understand? When they're talking about what they're talking about. Those are the facts, Mr. Speaker. And then, something very interesting. After Hurricane Maria, people who had left the country came back to the country after. They came back. At one stage, our average population was in the range of 73,000 people. But people came back to work after Hurricane David. And look at that. Now there's still less people working. Mr. Speaker, let me just make it fundamentally clear in this honorable house, Mr. Speaker. This is on the Labour Party. You have seen the most contributors, Mr. Speaker, to the Social Security Fund, Mr. Speaker, under the Labour Party administration, Mr. Speaker. And I can quote the figures, Mr. Speaker. I can quote the figures if you give me a chance to quote the figures, Mr. Speaker. I don't like to read, but I think this thing is so important, Mr. Speaker. You understand? Mr. Speaker, we had moved in 2018 and 2019 to 26,000 contributors, Mr. Speaker. People contributing to Social Security. Right. Because they have jobs. And because, let's put that into context, Mr. Speaker. The people who are paying to Social Security are those who want to pay. There may be a number of people working, self-employed, who are not reporting, Mr. Speaker. But we're saying we have been able to move that, Mr. Speaker, to the highest, and the economy was roaring after Hurricane Maria. Then came COVID. That created certain situations for us as a result of the consequence. People cannot work, but to stay home. But look at that, Mr. Speaker. They are still compiling the statistics for 23-24. What they are now? There are two large companies that have not presented the records, but so far, they have 25,062, which means we're going to surpass the 26,000 figure. That is what the Labour Party is doing on behalf of the people of Dominica. More people are working and contributing to Social Security, Mr. Speaker. So I'm not sure where they're getting the statistics from, Mr. Speaker. But I wanted to make those general comments there, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak briefly, and I don't want to be too long, on the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to firstly take this opportunity to commend the Permanent Secretary, the various heads of the department, the cleaners, staff members, security guards at the various hurricane shelters, all who have been involved in making the ministries what it is today. We take our job very seriously. And that's why we have been engaging the public, Mr. Speaker, over the past year. And every Tuesday, since the second and last Tuesdays of every month, we have a program where we bring different heads of department, Mr. Speaker. But I want to start, Mr. Speaker, on the whole issue of criminal justice reform. And I want to just dissect it a bit, Mr. Speaker, and speak to the prison system a bit. Because we have to look at the structural issues, Mr. Speaker, within the various functionaries of the criminal justice system, Mr. Speaker. And what can we do, Mr. Speaker, to make our prison less congested? What can we do, Mr. Speaker, to make our young people less inclined to return to prison, Mr. Speaker? That is important. And then how do we remove this kind of penal connotation from our prison system? And to have, that's what we have been looking at, having a commissioner of prison and correctional services, Mr. Speaker. So what we have been able to do, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, is to embark on some programs, vocational skills, especially for young people, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that when they leave the prison setting, they can go back into society and contribute towards mainstream society, Mr. Speaker, with a skill. So as we speak, Mr. Speaker, we are partnering with, Mr. Speaker, with the youth division, and thank you very much, and where we are actually converting a building into a training center. At the same time, we have a construction module, and the work is being done by the prisoners, and they'll be certified in the field of construction at the end. And we shall be doing, Mr. Speaker, a number of vocational undertakings at the training center to include sewing, tailoring, Mr. Speaker, woodcraft, leathercraft. That is what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're embarking on, Mr. Speaker. And we rehabilitate. So you want to rehabilitate instead of incarcerate, Mr. Speaker. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, I've been hearing them talking about people in the jail, etc. We have only one juvenile young person at the prisons. for a very serious offense, Mr. Speaker. And we're hoping that, because up to last month we had no young person, person, Mr. Speaker, in the prisons. The population of the prison stands at 260, Mr. Speaker, with 2 females. So the question I'm asking myself, why are men more inclined to commit crimes? The population of 260 inmates, you have only 2 females. Mr. Speaker, and then I'm saying that, I'm giving that number, Mr. Speaker, for the purpose of trying to make a comparison, because people say about everybody in jail. But in 2003 and 2007, as a minister, the population was about 350. So our intention now, because of COVID, Mr. Speaker, we have a number of people on remand. So we have to deal with that matter. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, we have to address the efficiency or lack thereof within the court system. And I want to say further that the court is the ultimate arbiter of matters before the court. Not the Prime Minister or the Minister, not the Attorney General. You know what I'm saying? Our role, my role as a minister, from a policy standpoint, is to make the environment more conducive for the operation of the court, Mr. Speaker. Ensure that you have enough staff, and I want to really, in terms of the magistrate court, Mr. Speaker, we have to ensure we create an environment where people feel motivated to work. So we have just recently seen the appointment of 8 staff members within the magistrate court, Mr. Speaker. That's the first time we have had 8 people appointed within the magistrate court, Mr. Speaker. Ordinary staff members, that's important, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue to look at the prison system. We are now working on the remand section. We're now installing the gate to have a specific cell to have the people who are on remand, who have not been actually sentenced, Mr. Speaker, so that they can be housed, Mr. Speaker, in a setting where they have the washroom. They have the washroom facility. That is what we're about, Mr. Speaker. Even if you're in prison, you have to have certain basic rights, Mr. Speaker. So these are the things that we're doing. Now, Mr. Speaker, why can't the prison feed itself? We have this remarkable labor force. So right now we're embarking, Mr. Speaker, on the establishment of a farm. As we speak, there's planting, dashing, bananas, etc., just name it, Mr. Speaker. And we're now working in the Ministry of Agriculture, thank you very much, sir, to get a couple of greenhouses, Mr. Speaker, to have our vegetables and to produce our eggs, Mr. Speaker. That is what, and to give to the infirmary, give to the hospital. That is what we're all about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to go back to the magistrate court. We have actually, Mr. Speaker, appointed an additional magistrate. We are looking for additional magistrate. We are able to look at the structures within the system to make the court more efficient. We are just getting through the job description for a registrar for the magistrate court or a case manager for the magistrate court to ensure that the magistrates themselves portfolio can be properly managed and the people of Dominica can get his money worth, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're all about, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, creating an environment for the witnesses, Mr. Speaker, would have spent over $150,000 at the magistrate court to build a proper waiting area for witnesses. When they pass, you can see it, we put in washrooms, etc. We just painted the building, and we have 6 court spaces, Mr. Speaker. And we're going to formalize in due time a family court, Mr. Speaker, with all the supporting human resource component that we need. That is what this budget is all about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, $60 million plus was made under the current expenditure for the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. And in that, Mr. Speaker, over $1 million going to be spent to train 60 additional police constables, recruits. It's important to have the numbers, Mr. Speaker, and training should start in the next 2 months, Mr. Speaker. We have established within the police force a specific unit under the umbrella of the Criminal Investigation Department for the investigation of domestic violence, Mr. Speaker. I call on the public to report all such matters to the police, and I call on the police to respond to those matters quickly on the sense of professionalism, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're all about, Mr. Speaker. We came to Parliament and passed a series of family bills, domestic violence, right? The status of rights of a child, setting aside this antiquated, Mr. Speaker, definition of a child, bastard, out of wedlock. We have done away with that, Mr. Speaker. All tut going to go, eh? Every child is a child, so every child, Mr. Speaker, has equal right, whether you're born within, sadly, whether you're born within marriage or out of marriage, every child is a child. Labour Party has a heart. It's about people, Mr. Speaker. All these things that we have done. Now, going back to Mr. Paris, Delbert Paris, smooth operator. Honorable. Honorable. Yeah, the drafter. Yeah, Mr. Speaker. he made reference to marijuana. But the guy who hates smoke, the guy doesn't like it. The devil doesn't smoke anything. He spoke about marijuana. Mr. Speaker, well, I don't know. I don't know what he smoked, but he doesn't smoke marijuana for sure, from my investigation. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this Labour Party administration came to Parliament, Mr. Speaker. You were part of the process, led by yours truly, Mr. Speaker, to decriminalize the possession of a certain quantum of marijuana, which means the police cannot charge anyone if that person were to be found with an ounce of marijuana or less. What that means also that anybody who was charged in the past, that cannot be in the record to be used against them for a job or to apply for a visa. Do you understand, Mr. Smooth Operator, Mr. Delbert, Honorable? So there is a question about you have scores of people in jail for possession of marijuana. You have to make a distinction between possession of marijuana with intent to supply and simple possession. And let me say to you again, Mr. Delbert, Honorable, there is no one at the state prison for simple possession. For a matter of fact, the police cannot charge anyone for simple possession of marijuana in less than an ounce of marijuana, 1 ounce. Write it down. You like to write, Mr. Speaker. Now, we came in this budget, Mr. Speaker, and we spoke about, Mr. Speaker, the medical use of marijuana and looking to set up a whole industry. What we have done as a responsible government, Mr. Speaker, is to have an incremental approach. Then we did it with a number of young men who have been criminalized and marginalized as a consequence. We ensure that, of course, we decriminalize a certain quantum of marijuana. Now, we're talking about marijuana for medical use. What we did, with the aid of the Canadian, there was a ministerial committee put in place, chaired by yours truly, along with a technical committee chaired by the Attorney General, to look at all the framework, because there are some countries in the world, marijuana still remains illegal. We have treaties with these countries. So you have to be mindful of those impediments, so to speak, in developing the sector. What we did, Mr. Speaker? Then we are now ready, as we speak. We have actually retained the services of a renowned legal drafter, Mr. Anthony Laron, who is currently looking at the legislation to give effect to medical marijuana. That's what we're doing, Mr. Speaker. But to create the impression that it's going to be a situation whereby all men can buy marijuana and go to the market to sell like watercress, Mr. Speaker, and cabbage, Mr. Speaker. Listen to him. You see, it's nonsensical. Because what the industry has to be regulated. And you have to issue licenses for the certified producer. So, you just look at me when I closely, you have plans. So then you can apply. Apply when the situation arises to go into medicinal marijuana. I know you're interested. You're smiling because you like money. Oui, mais l'argent. Yeah. Oui, mais l'argent. Yeah. And that is what we're doing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, companies. I want to take this opportunity to really commend the Registry of Companies. I mean, the passion, she takes in the job. And, it's remarkable. For matter of fact, all the heads of the department. And then I want to also say to the public that companies plays a very important role in ensuring that we are compliant. And so far as money laundering is concerned, and to ensure that we stay out from the blacklist. And she has been doing it along with her staff. I want to take this opportunity to commend her staff. And then everything can be done online. This ministry, Mr. Speaker, is one of the most proactive ministries in ensuring that you can go online and do any business with us, the government, You know what I'm talking about? And then, Mr. Speaker, what we have seen because of the increased efficiency on the part is that for this last financial year, 23-24, Mr. Speaker, $1,470,000 was raised. All right, that's an increase of $96,000. So the notion that companies are simply there, companies are also raising revenue, ensuring that we remain compliant. And I want to just call on a number of people who have been randomly going around and just meet Mr. Grant and say, I want to form a non-profit. Come as a director. All right? Wash your foot and come. And then they go and they start the process of raising funds, even before applying through the lawyer, declaring the directors, and to get a license issued by the minister, which is illegal. And I'm saying further that non-profit organization has to be compliant insofar as the law is concerned. Because you're answerable under the Proceeds of Crime Act. We place an obligation on every non-profit organization to keep proper records, to keep their books intact. Because the minister, by law, can ask for an audit at any time. The Financial Services Unit, the FIU, can come randomly by law and inspect your books, Mr. Speaker. And then to say further, it's important for all companies and non-profit to have directors meeting. So in order to wash your foot and come, somebody met me and have directors overseas, then I come Dominica, I just meet that fellow there. Ed was very remarkable in his presentation, Mr. Speaker. And said, Ed I want to form a small non-profit. I want you to be a director, and I'll send it to the minister. It doesn't go that way. It doesn't work that way. And then we have to ensure that we do not expose the country to risk for us to be blacklisted again. So the ministry, companies, have that obligation, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that there is proper due diligence done on every applicant. You have to ensure that every director is properly investigated, Mr. Speaker, because some of them come in malintent, Mr. Speaker, and to front the money, etc., and to do other stuff, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, fire and ambulance services, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for year ending, the fire department responded to 10,192 calls. Okay? 9,757 were ambulance responses, Mr. Speaker. Others were accidents. And I want to call on, Mr. Speaker, the bike riders and those who like to ride at the back with short pants and slippers on the foot, etc. Pum-pum shot sometimes, Mr. Speaker, that there's a public health implication. When you have a number of people not protecting themselves, not wearing protective gear, getting involved in an accident, is a cost to the government when you go to the hospital. So, Mr. Speaker, what we're doing now? One might say, why the police are not enforcing the law? Mr. Speaker, Chapter 4650, that is the traffic ordinance, namely Section 7801. 78.1 of that same ordinance, Mr. Speaker, says that every rider should be equipped with a headgear. There has been a technicality because headgear is not defined. Because man can just take a mush with his head and say that I have a headgear, I can put a cap. So some of us, like the member for Roseau Central, we have nice fancy cap, you understand? Right? Can put a cap, you understand? On her free wheel, how do you call them again? The ATV. That free body will go on there, and I call them. Okay? With no headgear. You have to set the example. That is prohibited, Mr. Speaker. Understand? So, Mr. Speaker, I'll be looking closely for the breakfast fare to all the riders, especially my colleagues who ride without hat. Yes, and tell them, be careful with that. Set the example. So, as we speak, the specialist that we have, the draft person, is making sure that he does the drafting for the proper regulation to be issued and to criminalize the non-wearing of proper headgear, proper protective gear. Start chairs, your hand. There's a member of cabinet of mine, a friend of mine before, all is appreciate till he had no glove, Mr. Speaker. So we have to ensure that doesn't happen again, Mr. Speaker. So that's a very serious matter, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was making reference a while ago about the Magistrate Court. And the Magistrate Court in last financial year actually saw a 32% increase in revenue collection.
22 more minutes.
How much?
22.
22?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's cool. I see financial secretary making notes. But the magistrate court was able to actually see an increase of 42% in the revenue. So we have seen revenue increases in companies and also the magistrate court, Mr. Speaker. And that is the way we want to go to ensure that monies are collected on behalf of the state. Mr. Speaker, and that's why, Mr. Speaker, I'm listening to the Minister of Finance, and when he made reference to the number of people owing the state, Mr. Speaker, one of the areas that we have to look at, we have to look at is the issue of people who are not compliant in terms of paying the driver's licenses, Mr. Speaker, and the vehicle licensing. So we're going to ensure that we're more aggressive in ensuring that, because when you drive on the road with an unlicensed vehicle, an uninsured vehicle, you're posing a risk not only to yourself, but to others, Mr. Speaker. And it's absolutely important for you to be responsible as a responsible citizen and to pay your driver's license, and to pay your vehicle license, and to pay your insurances, Mr. Speaker. So that's something that the police, Mr. Speaker, because the chief of police is the commissioner of traffic, has to be more proactive, and they're giving the commitment that they're going to step up. But you know, people have tricks. Now, people like to call the minister, message the minister, why the police stopping vehicles 8 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But at the time, all they're trying to come in and escape. So at the time, the police can block all you. So there has to be some element of inconvenience. But to prevent that, Mr. Speaker, we have to ensure as a government that we make the services more available to our various communities. So what we will be doing, we have started the process, the ministry has started the process. We're working in concert with Inland Revenue. I have identified the spot in Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker, that people can apply and receive the driver's license in Portsmouth. They can apply for and receive the driver's licenses in Maritime, Mr. Speaker. And I believe if we were to do that, people will be more inclined, upon collection of the licenses, to pay the driver's licenses, Mr. Speaker. That is what we will be doing, Mr. Speaker, in the next couple of months. And that's what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, FIU. Mr. Speaker, the FIU of Dominica is by far the best in the region. I can say that. With no hesitation, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, over the years, we have seen a number of cases insofar as money laundering is concerned, Mr. Speaker. Last year, for this, the FIU actually was able to forfeit $954,000, Mr. Speaker, which of course can be used, was used, Mr. Speaker, in our effort, Mr. Speaker, to strengthen our structure within the police force and the entire law enforcement apparatus, Mr. Speaker, inclusive of the customs. Because we must never forget the customs. The customs has been very much involved with the police, Mr. Speaker, the FIU, to ensure that monies are confiscated. Before confiscated, Mr. Speaker, seized, and before forfeited, seized, and of course the matter can be actually litigated before the court, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Attorney General Office, Mr. Speaker, have a number of talented young Dominicans, Mr. Speaker, very bright people who are underpaid, I will say that. And then we will continue as a government to ensure that professional, as we did for the nurses. And I want to commend the government, the Prime Minister for that, Mr. Speaker. I heard somebody speaking and they make a reference to nurses going away. But notwithstanding the difficult times in this country, Mr. Speaker, we have seen a further upgrade of various positions, Mr. Speaker, within the nursing fraternity, Mr. Speaker. We are now a chief nursing officer, director of nursing services, Mr. Speaker. No more assistant nurse or, the various levels. No feeling like what sister. Can you imagine Vincent Ness is a nurse and you call him what sister? So I'm saying, I said, what sister, no, what sister? What sister? No. So now we make it, gender-free. You understand what kind of definition, Mr. Speaker? Gender-neutral, sorry. Gender-neutral kind of definition. All these things that we're doing, Mr. Speaker, in hard time. So the necessaries have gone up again. And I want to commend the government for that. Commend the Prime Minister, commend the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker. Because my first sister was a nurse. I know it's a very difficult undertaking. I own a uniform for her. It's a very difficult undertaking, Mr. Speaker. To work, and what else we have to do is to ensure when they end work at night, we provide transportation for them to go to the homes. So that is what we are about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to make something very clear. There are a lot of bad boys around. And they believe to settle a difference. They have to use a gun. And Mr. Speaker, what we see with cocaine, and there's a nexus between hard illegal drugs, cocaine, and illegal firearms, Mr. Speaker. You know what I'm saying? And Mr. Speaker, one in a small island state like Dominica, within 1 month, a street value of $67 million of cocaine seized by the police. That is reason for concern. Mr. Speaker, my entire life, I've been to stand for the rule of law. I will stand for the rule of law in government and outside government, Mr. Speaker. We have to put the brakes on those fellas, Mr. Speaker. The guys who are using our young men as mules, Mr. Speaker, have to be dealt with and confronted frontally, Mr. Speaker, to the street. But the thing is that, what we have to put into context, Mr. Speaker, some of the cocaine were found on the ground, buried, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, they come by sea. It's a transshipment point. But we have to understand that because of our small population size, this spillover effect can corrupt and turn our young men into addicts also. Because they're using that money to corrupt our young guys and to corrupt other people. And we have to put an end to that. And I want to commend the police commissioner, commend the guys in drug squad, commend the guy in the task force, commend all the police officers who have been involved in a very dangerous job to rid in the street of that quantity of cocaine, Mr. Speaker. That is Dominican to the bone, Mr. Speaker. And thank you very much to our police officers. And we'll continue to give support to the police in that regard. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, the back door, we're going to shut the back door. It is time to close the back door, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to say what we were doing, Mr. Speaker, but we are again further going to enhance our capabilities to properly, Mr. Speaker, survey, have surveillance, north, south, and to actually have to make sure that we have proper intelligence to further actually confront all those who are involved in that dangerous trade, Mr. Speaker. Cocaine, illegal firearms, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine, Mr. Speaker, from 2000 to now, 2020 to now, Mr. Speaker, the police recovered 192 illegal firearms. That is what they have recovered. And, of course, arrested and charged 150. As I said, let me reiterate, the court is the final arbiter, Mr. Speaker, of matters brought before it. But we had a gun amnesty program where you could have brought in your illegal firearm without fear of being prosecuted. You chose to keep a firearm. Anybody who has an illegal firearm intends to use it. You get my point I'm saying? And it means, therefore, the court has to take a more serious view of people who come before the court, especially people with prohibited firearms. When a man shoots somebody, execution style, Mr. Speaker, we have enacted a bail act that says and sets out the condition under which bail should not be granted and catalogs the various crimes, murder, kidnapping, certain illegal firearms. And if you have flight risk, etc., bail should not be considered. But never in the past, when somebody committed a brutal murder, that bail was even considered at the court. And Mr. Speaker, it is time, Mr. Speaker. I do not believe in taking human life. I do not give life. But I also believe in the philosophy of law. That when you have deliberately, calculatedly, to take somebody else's life, you have, by so doing, forfeited your own life, your own right to live, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, once you have been afforded due process and found guilty by the court, Mr. Speaker, I see nothing wrong in applying for the death penalty for people who kill people, execution style, Mr. Speaker. We have to make an example of these people. Somebody in a hospital bed. On a hospital bed, you go to the hospital and you shoot that man while you're on the drips, Mr. Speaker. You are found guilty, or you're taken before the court, you have been granted bail, and you only blame Scarrett and Mr. Blackmore for that. We came to Parliament and passed the Bail Act, Mr. Speaker. And those are the issues, Mr. Speaker. Those are the issues, Mr. Speaker, that we have to confront as a community and as a society. We have to deal with these things frontally. The court has a responsibility to the broader society, Mr. Speaker. It cannot operate within a vacuum, or it cannot be an authority of its own, Mr. Speaker. I have to say that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the registry. The registry staff worked hard during COVID and before Hurricane Maritime. And I want to commend the staff also for the hard work. Mr. Speaker, you can get your vital life certificates within hours. You can apply, and once everything is in place, you can go to the registry and get a birth certificate within 5 minutes. Isn't that moving forward, Mr. Speaker? You can go online, Mr. Speaker, and pay for your services relative to the services, Mr. Speaker, issued by the registry, Mr. Speaker. The same thing for the court, Mr. Speaker, the courts. After talking about transforming the court, nobody is talking about, Mr. Speaker, that you can go using the e-portal at the High Court, the Supreme Court, sorry. And also we have introduced the e-portal at the magistrate court level, which means you can file online, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're doing within Labour Party government, Mr. Speaker. Bringing services to the doorstep, the homes of everybody, Mr. Speaker. So it's for us, Mr. Speaker, as a country to play our part. The government can only do so much, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, while we're talking about the court, Mr. Speaker, we now have a magistrate stationed in person. You know, there was a hoopla before. And from one report, Mr. Speaker, he's doing a great job. And this government will continue to address all these issues. We are now building a new magistrate court in Grand Bay. We are building a new fire station in Grand Bay, Mr. Speaker. All these things are doing. We have $4 million set aside in the estimates to continue some of the projects that we have begun, Mr. Speaker, including the secondary fence at the prisons, which is almost complete, Mr. Speaker. So all those things that we're doing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I end, I must talk about the legal aid. Because when you talk about reform in the justice system, we have to talk about access, having access to the court, having access to an attorney. And the number of people, Mr. Speaker, who have been charged, who go into a situation, there are some women living with some men who are abusive, and they want to get divorced. They don't have the money. Some of them are still dependent on the husband. And it can be a woman too. But we all know that, and people get vexed when I say that, but we all know that in most cases, 99% of the cases, the abused party is always a woman. Let us not fool ourselves, Mr. Speaker. So the legal aid have been doing a fantastic job so far. And I want to commend the director and the staff. And then for this year on which I'm reporting, they were able to assist people who were seeking divorces. Not a nice thing to do. We encourage the family, Mr. Speaker. That's 33 divorce cases were done by the legal aid. They were telling people who were charged for serious matters without a right to an attorney, without an attorney. Legal aid provided that right to that. There are some people who are seeking protection orders from the court. Legal aid was able to assist 20 people in that regard, Mr. Speaker. So we are having a situation looking at the criminal justice system from a holistic standpoint. Not only having more magistrates and more judges, but to ensure we look at the structures within the system and to ensure that even the common man, not having a lawyer, can be afforded one at the cost of the state. And I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, among the OECS catchment, Dominica is among one of the only countries with such a service, Mr. Speaker. But they don't talk about that because they have this kind of one-dimensional view as to how the criminal justice system should work, Mr. Speaker. All these things we have been able to do, Mr. Speaker, in the ministry. We, ODM, and the Med Services, Mr. Speaker. The Med Services under Mr. Itoma James, very impressive young man and his staff, Mr. Speaker. We now have a situation where we have trained forecasters. We have departed from the past, Mr. Speaker, used to be the minister before, where we have to rely on foreign interests to issue warnings, watches. We now have the competence to do that. That is development, Mr. Speaker, because we have within GMIT the infrastructure, physical infrastructure, as well as the human resource component. We are looking at, Mr. Speaker, of improving the human resource component. We're working with the establishment department to have additional staffing at the ODM, at the Med Office, Mr. Speaker. The same for ODM, which I shall speak to in a while, Mr. Speaker. And to say, Mr. Speaker, look at what we have done. We have a number of water gauges, Mr. Speaker, on the various elevations to monitor our water levels, Mr. Speaker, and to instantaneously send information to the technical people within the Met Office. We're going to advise the policymakers. That is what we have been able to do, Mr. Speaker. All that we have been able to do within the Met Services. And we shall engage, Mr. Speaker, going forward, continue to have this public community outreach program to engage the people on the work that the ODM and Met Office is doing. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak about the ODM and from a whole standpoint of the need for decentralization. So, Mr. Speaker, we have been able to do the hurricane shelters, etc. But the nerve of the operation of the ODM has to also be decentralized. So going forward, Mr. Speaker, we need to have something similar that obtains in Jimmy right now in the north, maybe preferably Portsmouth. So we can actually decentralize, you understand, the whole approach of disaster management in this country. But one of the important things that I want to make reference to, because in the past I've spoken about the number of people you have trained in radios, etc., for a greater degree of redundancy. We have, Mr. Speaker, installed repeaters throughout the country, because when a hurricane strikes, the traditional communication system goes off. We have trained over 144 people in the various communities as to how to operate telecommunication sets, Mr. Speaker. That is tremendous, Mr. Speaker. We have 66 satellite phones, Mr. Speaker, in our possession to be deployed to the first responders, the nurses, don't name it. We are doing this thing, Mr. Speaker. And for the first time, we are able, on our phones, in our offices, we can monitor the level of the boiling lake, Mr. Speaker, because we have cameras installed there. This government is a serious government, Mr. Speaker. This is a serious government, Mr. Speaker. And as we speak about ODM, we're in hurricane season. I call on the public, because we have been going out to the schools to ensure that disaster mitigation, disaster management is a lifestyle matter. It has to be part of the national psyche. It has to be part of our school programs, Mr. Speaker. So we're working in the schools, we're working in the communities, Mr. Speaker. But I want to talk about the issue of mitigation that we're missing, Mr. Speaker. And I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, this thing came to my mind when we had the isolated matter as a consequence of burial, when we had elevated seas, never an issue of Dominican, some of us were not born yet. The only time I saw Wales highlight was Hurricane David. And nothing on my colleague, Mr. Vince, he was very, very young at the time. Huh? And Mr. Speaker, so the roads we are building in the East Coast, Mr. Speaker, and for the Christmas, the people in Castle Bruce and the other areas, including the Carinago people, will be able to drive on brand new roads, properly secured, Mr. Speaker. So when it rains, Mr. Speaker, we have storm drains, box culverts, Mr. Speaker, widest carriageway, Mr. Speaker. That we're talking about mitigation at the core, Mr. Speaker. Building a country of resilience, Mr. Speaker, consistent with what the Prime Minister said, making Dominica the first climate resilient country of the world, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when I think about the impact of the sea, I think about my good friend from Mrs. Pemberton. I cannot make a mistake because she's married to somebody from where? My whole constituency, isn't it? I can't make a mistake. And Mr. Speaker, I can recall, look, I see the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Public Works. He was a senior engineer at the time. When we built the seawall in Point Michel, $24 million, Mr. Speaker. People used to fall along, Mr. Speaker, in the sea before. People died on the Point Michel Road, Mr. Speaker. And were it not for the sea defense wall, Mr. Speaker, in Point Michel, the seas from Berry would have destroyed the community of Point Michel, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about mitigation, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, the same can be said for Soufriere. It is your government who spent $27 million to build that wall in Soufriere, mitigation to the core. And were it not for that wall, the roads in Soufriere and homes in Soufriere would have been gone, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're talking about, planning and proper governance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, Mr. Speaker, three of us were there in 2000. The Prime Minister is not there. Honorable Henderson was the one who caused me, ultimately, to come on board. I saw this young, when I was working I just came to make duties at the CID office with a television there, and I saw this young, eloquent guy talking about I'm back in sensitive to one sensitive constituency. You understand? So guys, grandpa. You understand? You understand? And before that, the Prime Minister who taught together with me at the college gave me a letter, so we had to come on board. But Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by saying that. Because I've been hearing people say that people who were scared the Prime Minister and the Labour Party have departed from the dream of the late Rosa Douglas. And it's a mile of very much because we get involved in politics, let's pense. But when he came into office, and before that, when he campaigned on the promise of, what do you call it again? A new renaissance, building a new renaissance. And it didn't dwell in my mind at the time what he meant by that. Because within my psyche, when I hear about the word renaissance, it comes about to revive. Look at medical doctrine. The next one, revive. You only revive something that's dead. For a man to say, Mr. Speaker, I want to revive you, it means that how you can be sitting and managing your house and I have to revive you now. You're not dead, you're well, it's not so. So he needed to revive the economy. And he spoke about things like the international airport. He spoke about housing for the poor. He spoke about health care for the poor. He spoke about education for the poor, Mr. Speaker. But what, may soul rest in peace, he passed on. But what was preventing that renaissance from happening? Because we were embarking on the same status quo approach. And we expected different results, Mr. Speaker. So you needed someone to come in. You know when you're shaking a mango tree and ripe, aborté, everything falling down, matute, falling down. You know what I'm saying? Matute. What I'm not matute, matute means matured. So you shake it through everything falling down. You needed somebody to come and shake the status quo. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we are able to do what we do now, Mr. Speaker. Because then came the Prime Minister and challenged the status quo. Took the risk, Mr. Speaker. And as a result, Mr. Speaker, we're getting the airport. As a result, Mr. Speaker, we're getting the cable car. As a result, Mr. Speaker, we're getting the marina. As a result, Mr. Speaker, we'll get the cruise village. As a result, Mr. Speaker, as a result, we'll get, Mr. Speaker, a new port, cargo port, Mr. Speaker. As a result, Mr. Speaker, we are training thousands of young people, children in medicine, in engineering, in various contemporary disciplines, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're doing right now. As a result, Mr. Speaker, we are building hurricane-proof homes for thousands of people around the country. That is the renaissance that Mr. Douglas was talking about, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute.
Yeah, talking about, Mr. Speaker, that we were not able to achieve because we did not have the leadership to make the decision, to take the risk, Mr. Speaker. And all the things we are doing, most of what we're doing, are coming from our own financial circumstance. The airport, CBI, and just name it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support this budget, Mr. Speaker. I want to again commend the Minister for Finance. I want to commend the Financial Secretary and the staff, Mr. Speaker. And all the permanent secretaries, Mr. Speaker. But most importantly, let me again express my gratitude to the permanent secretary within the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs, the various heads of department, staff members, messengers, security guards, cleaners, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your support, and thank you for serving Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this Honorable House be suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.